fam.news.
The president of Giga Cloud Technology has helped lead the company's remarkable growth. What is Giga Cloud and Supplier-Fulfilled Retail, and how is it potentially reshaping the mattress and furniture industry? You're about to find out because Iman Schrock is here, and the Fam Podcast starts right now. Hey, are you a mattress retailer looking to supercharge your business? Introducing Podium, your secret weapon. I use it, I'm a huge fan of it, and with Podium's AI-powered lead conversion, you can engage with customers in seconds via text, making it feel like they're talking to a friend. But hey, that's just the beginning. Podium offers texting, payments, reviews, website chat, and more, all in one place. You've got to be the most responsive retailer to help customers solve those sleep problems in the moment. Harness the power of Podium today and start growing your business. Visit podium.com right now to learn more.
Welcome to the FAM Podcast with Mark Kinsley. This is where the best in the bedding business get even better.
Welcome, fam, back to the podcast. Another Monday, another happy day, and another smiling face. My friend Iman Schrock, the president of Giga Cloud Technology, is here on the show today. Amon, thank you so much for being here.
Well, it is my pleasure. Thank you, Mark, for having me.
Now, Amon, for the people that don't know you or don't know Giga Cloud, this is something that sort of came into my field of view over the past year via John Anderson and the acquisition of WonderSign with Casper Fopp and the team there. But before we get to all that, tell people about you, who you are, and your background in the furniture and mattress industry, and what is Giga Cloud Technology?
Well, good question on the Giga part. We'll get to it. But about myself, I think my daughter was born 9 months ago, so I kind of redefined who I am. First and foremost, I think I'm a girl dad at this point, and I'm a son, a husband, and yeah, I love what I do. You know, like I try to be a good friend to people and a good business partner, and I let those definitions carry weight for me. So I'm delighted. I'm delighted to get to know you, Mark, and to be on this podcast.
Well, I think that's a great definition, a girl dad, and defining who you are through the things that matter most to you and where your focus is. That's very special. I think one of our earliest conversations, since we're going there, it really stood out to me because you talked about your going through a very intense meditation orientation with, is it Sadhguru?
Sadhguru, yeah.
Yeah. There are people out here who are, interested in sleep, and meditation has a very close connection to sleep. Do you mind sharing a little bit of that?
No, I'd love to. I've always kind of been very interested. Since I was younger, I have a very busy mind. I've always been trying to find a way to quiet it down. And I kind of battled myself for many years, like I would meditate, and sometimes it was very difficult. It would agitate me, actually, the opposite, because it's hard. My mind is typically a very busy place. And a friend of mine traveled to India and was initiated by Sadhguru. Sadhguru is very interesting. He has a lot of content, on the internet, SADH Guru. And I was fascinated by some of the concepts that he talks about. I got more interested, and I signed up for this program. It's in Tennessee as an ashram. And yeah, I went there. I went there to figure out how to be, a better mind quieter. And it was in that process that something phenomenal happened, actually, because I realized that actually the true essence of meditation is not to quiet the mind down, because you can't. The essence of meditation is observance, because there are days that the mind is quiet and there are days that the mind is busy. And the reason it's busy because there's a reason, and you cannot battle yourself. But you being aware, there's days that I wake up that I'm like agitated. For whatever reason, we're all human beings. And I get to step back and I notice that I'm agitated. So that allows me to observe myself more closely as I react with people and react to situations. And it's giving me more control. It's giving me a lot more control. Like a lot of the times, if I'm not aware of it, the days that I'm super busy, I step out and I'm agitated, you say something to me and I quickly, respond back to you and I feel bad. But had I meditated that day, I know that I'm agitated, so I'm more cautious. I usually incorporate, I call it the power of the pause. I mean, it's a term I used and I'm trying to write a book. I've been trying for many years, hasn't come together yet. But the power of the pause is like using pauses to improve your decision making, because a lot of the times our reactiveness is what prevents us from seeing the solution. In the meetings I see it too. Like I always want to like contribute, like I used to be that way. I'm like the first person to raise their hand, and I kind of had to battle myself. Now I take a step back. I listen, and something magical that happens is like as people are talking, I can see clearly. It's like the water being muddy. You can't see through it, and the moment you let the soul go down, you're like, wow, the water is clear. You can see all the way through. So I was influenced by Sadhguru a lot. He has a lot of interesting stuff. Obviously, like nobody's perfect, no methodology is perfect. It's what works for you, what makes you a better human being. But yes, I do meditate as much as I can, and I do observe myself. Like today, I'm very calm. I know that already, so it's good. That means that like I need to do something, so now I have to push myself further. So maybe I like start to breathe faster, like to pump myself up. But it's that quality of being aware of how your mental state is quite empowering, Mark. I do recommend it.
It was really special whenever you shared that with me initially, and I thought of my own experience, my own journey, which is not, being in a situation like that, like you were with Sadhguru in Tennessee, but my own journey with meditation. And that was the biggest turning point for me as well, was I was trying to control my mind. I was trying to control my thoughts. I was trying to empty my mind. And I realized, I remember listening to somebody talk about meditation. They said, no, it's the whole purpose is practice of observance, practicing being aware. You can't control your thoughts and emotions. Those are two things that you can't control, but you can, if you're aware of them, do something with them, or maybe guide them or direct them, or at least be aware so that you can be in a better state of mind based on knowing where you're at for that day, just like you described.
Absolutely. Well said.
It's been a game changer for me, and it's also led to better sleep. I've talked about it on the show many, many times, because monkey mind is a real thing. And at night, if somebody can't shut off their mind, my gosh, it's one of the worst things.
Yeah.
How's the baby sleeping, by the way? 9 months.
Baby's sleeping better, way better. Like I think, like with the baby, like I was fortunate because my wife quickly realized that I'm a clumsy person when I don't sleep. And I do tend to miss stuff. So she's like, okay, you sleep in the guest bedroom. So she sacrificed a lot by letting me do that. I do get up whenever I hear her cry. I try to be there as much as I can. But then I've been sleeping really well, thanks to my wife. So, I have to find an opportunity to be grateful to her as well. But like, I think when you observe the child sleep, they also kind of go through the same cycle, like the process of a human being falling asleep is quite interesting. There's many, scientists looking into it. We don't quite understand why we sleep. It's from an evolutionary perspective, it is not the smartest thing to do, because if you think about it, there's 8 hours or 7 hours or 6 hours that you're inactive and you're pretty vulnerable. Like you can get attacked, you can get a lot of bad things could happen to you. But it has to be very, very, very important to human beings for the process not to be disrupted out. Otherwise, like we would all die as a species. But it was so important that even though 8 hours you're kind of inactive, you're just lying there, that remained. And I think a lot of science is pointing towards like emotional, like I think it's called emotional consolidation. What happens is that we process the day and the events and the emotional charge that particular evening during sleep. And those different phases, not only the body gets to recover, nutrients are being delivered to the body, the rest and restore component, but then a lot of the trauma and the emotional weight of the day is being settled and reconsolidated into various centers of the brain during that time. So sleep is extremely important. And you can see it in the children. I notice it. I was sharing with you earlier that I adopted this idea of ending every day with like writing something in my personal notepad, that I named after my daughter Amelia Starr, about my interactions with her that day, how I felt, what stood out to me. And it's turning out to be pretty special, to be honest with you. It's like charged with emotions. Because there was a day that for the first time she waved at me, and I have that in there. And sometimes like I go through those notes, and it is a fantastic feeling. And I'm trying to get to relive those experiences a little bit. But with her also, like you kind of see that they settle down, and when they nap, they're in a better mood. It's just how the human beings operate. Like that's why the bedding and the mattresses industry are so important, because they're the cornerstone of one of the most important, yet not very obvious to people, aspects of human life. Like how do we make that journey better? And yeah.
I know that as a business leader, as a new parent, sleep is typically very top of mind as you're navigating your day. You're trying to be there for your daughter, like we talked about at the very beginning. What defines you has maybe changed a little bit, but going back to as you do navigate business and be a good family man and a good friend and a good business partner, like you talked about, you've got some recent news, some recent recognition. Give people the lay of the land about what's happening within this company and how are you making this impact? What does it all mean?
Absolutely. So Giga was a term that Larry, our CEO and founder, came up with to denote big and bulky. And cloud was a term he borrowed from cloud computing. And the idea was to build the infrastructure so big and bulky product can sit into cloud computing with a lot of efficiencies. And then the resellers or the retailers can download the product, even though it's this big mattress, to the end consumer's doorstep, only when the product is sold. So we've built the ecosystem, which is a marketplace connecting right now 1,051 sellers. Again, we're B2B, so these are either manufacturers or distributors or suppliers. And on the flip side of that is 8,500 and change resellers and retailers. These are a combination of like online reselling folks, brick and mortar stores, some of the chains, a little bit of designers, a little bit of everything. And we're connected to parties. And in doing so, we enable the catalog of the seller to go to any zip code for the same price. So you can think about it, if you were looking at a Casper mattress, for instance, this mattress can go to any zip code for like $60. These are all hypothetical, the brands and the prices, to give you an idea. But if I'm buying that mattress for $400 and it's shipping for $60, then that's my all-in cost. So I can really, as a retailer, get to focus on what matters the most, and that is converting traffic and advertising and closing the sale. And I know my all-in cost. I mark it up accordingly and I sell it. And Giga also is disrupting some of the unnecessary changes. We think in most cases, not for every case, the touch point at the retailer's warehouse is unnecessary. Because if you're a furniture store and we have all the brands that you want and we enable them to go to any zip code, then there is no reason for you to bring that product from our warehouse to your warehouse, then to send it to the customer, where we can send it directly to the end consumer. Not only the time frame, the transit time would be reduced, but also the touch points. And there are, of course, a lot of cost implications in that process, because, we're talking about like adjustable bases, like beds that we move for no reason from one point, from a distributor's warehouse to the retailer's warehouse, and the retailer delivers it to the end consumer, where if the distributor was enabled on behalf of the retailer, when the sale occurs, can deliver to the end consumer. So this is kind of the business model that we are very proud of. We call this supplier-fulfilled retailing. It is not only that logistics supply chain component that I talked about, but also another hidden factor is, in our business model, the suppliers take the inventory risk. And obviously that allows the retailers to operate asset light. So if you're an e-commerce company, You go to our marketplace, there's 60,000 SKUs. You can build your own website, call it Mark's Beautiful Furniture, and you know what the product costs. You can negotiate it with them, with the suppliers, set exclusive pricing, whatever that may be. We also solve the logistics component, and you mark it up and you sell it. If you're a furniture store, you can build a virtual showroom, and that's the change we're hoping to bring to the industry, is that we're trying to tell folks that, hey, the same supply chain that brought into life e-commerce, because a lot of people didn't believe that companies like Purple and Casper, like can survive, can work selling, mattresses online, when other people have been selling for many, many years in the store, something that is very, very experiential in nature, very empirical. You want to touch and feel and sleep on it. People always doubted it, and then they did it. And that component of convenience was underestimated. But the same supply chain can come to the store, because the store can become a virtual showroom in reality, but with a huge advantage of having the products, but not carrying inventory risk. And that allows the stores to be nimble also, because let's say that I bring this particular bed into a market and the market just doesn't respond to it. If I had bought a container or 10 pieces or 50 pieces, I'm stuck with them until I sell through them. That ties up my cash flow. Right now, we know like the banks are charging higher rates, so that's even worse. And at the same time, it's opportunity cost, because if you have the wrong product, you don't have the right product. And that's the beauty of our business model, is that you get to respond to the trends and bring in products. If I buy a bad product in my store, Mark, I just sell the floor model and I replace it with something else. And I keep doing this until I find a product that hits. And that's the power of e-commerce, because e-commerce folks don't have that cost, that fixed cost of, buying a container or half a container of 50 units. They just change the image on the web page. They just change the product page. They change the order. And we're hoping that we can bring that change to the market. As far as the business itself, the business has skyrocketed. I think I wish I could take any credit for it. I mean, I'm a very lucky individual. I think luck and hard work, they come together, and that's a magic formula for success. But yeah, I guess I was very fortunate to join Giga. The business model is very disruptive, but it makes a lot of sense. And there are folks that are quickly understanding that, hey, there is a problem that we have solved. And that is powerful. If they take advantage of that, they find ways to make money that is incremental to their core business. And there is an interesting topic. I don't know how familiar you are with game theory. I taught economics at at the university level for many years, not by choice. Because as you know, when I graduated with my PhD in organizational psychology, I worked for a tech giant, and then I came very quickly, very short stint. I came to the furniture industry. I got sucked in, so I never got to practice being a psychologist. But the only thing I did is I became an instructor for online universities. I worked actually for American Military University, AMU, for over a decade, and I taught multiple disciplines. Sometimes they put me in to teach economics and game theory courses, so I had to teach myself and educate myself. But there's a game theory concept, very interesting one, called the Stackelberg competition. This was coined after the German economist that coined the term, Heinrich von the Stackelberg, I think is his full name. But the idea is very simple. It's actually very powerful. It basically says that in a space, the leader of the space creates the competition, even though that competition may not be real. So if I'm Serta Simmons, and I drop the price on my memory foam mattresses, that's a Stackelberg competition, because me dropping the prices forces, like a domino effect, every other furniture company in this space to follow suit, even though there is no logical reason. And people usually respond to it because they're like, oh, nobody buys memory foam mattresses. But that's not a trend by the end consumer, but it's more a Stackelberg. And this is being used a lot by the bigger companies, because they quickly realize that when they change something, the industry follows suit. And they get to manipulate the industry that way. And in a sense, everybody's, in the business, the end goal is creating profit. So that manipulation has a goal in mind, like, how do I generate more dollars? And every company is on their own in that sense. even though they are within the same arena, contributing, to the overall ecosystem. And it's very, very interesting because, like, a lot of the times, if you take a pause, you look around, you're like, hold on a second. Am I reacting to the industry because of a dramatic shift, or this is a Stackelberg situation? And the reason why you want to be aware is that sometimes you don't want to play in that game, because a lot of people create blue ocean strategies, because when that Stackelberg, it's a real thing. You know the industry really well. If you review, your experiences, you can see a lot of the times, obviously, like, you've been an executive in this space, you know this full well, that when you change the trends and people react quickly, like within 6 months, like, I remember, like, myself, like, when the first time I saw the boucle fabric, I thought it was ugly. It was knobby and would come undone. I was like, oh, what is this? And everybody's doing it. Now it's lovely. People love it across the board. You see it everywhere. And now we're moving away from the traditional fabric. So if somebody's doing the traditional fabric, they have a blue ocean strategy. So that's very interesting to consider. Also, there's another one called the prisoner's dilemma. This one is actually really interesting. It says, if me and you commit a crime and we get busted, right? What is the perfect outcome for each of us? Obviously, the perfect outcome has a definition. The perfect outcome for me means I go free and you go to prison. So that means that if I were to defect, and if I were to tell on you, put everything on you, cut a deal, I get to go free and you get to get the sentence, let's say 5 years. And you can do the same thing to benefit yourself. Or we can both defect, saying, oh, Mark is going to talk, I'm going to talk. So we both talk and we both, like, get our sentence reduced to like 2.5 years. Actually, the game theory suggests the best outcome is for both of us not to speak. So that way we both get like a small sentence because there's not enough data. But in reality, this has been studied over and over in all interrogations of multiple suspects being arrested. Every time they both defect and they get the worst outcome. So they both get 2.5 years. Because the first thought in my head is like, oh, Mark's going to talk. So I'm like, okay, let me tell on him. And here's the most beautiful thing. Actually, the most optimal outcome is the moment I get busted, I should tell on you. Be like, okay, I want to talk right now voluntarily before I get there. And that way I go free, you get, busted, or vice versa. This almost never happens because the talking comes after, because the human mind is this busy place and the monkey brain that you talked about kicks in. And yeah, so this is the same idea in the industry, is like, when you're looking at things, like, are we reacting? Are we reacting at the same time? Or are we doing something completely different? And a lot of the times, the two companies kind of aligning strategies is very bad for both companies.
So what do you suggest happens to a business if in those situations, that one you just described, two people committing a crime?
Yeah.
How do the businesses play into it, and what are it's not a crime, but it's a what that's unfolding?
So in a business sense, like, we're talking about competition. You think about your competition in the sense of, game theory and prisoner's dilemma. You realize that if your, competitor down the road is advertising a $9.99 price, your initial reaction is to chase that. Even though this is not a Stackelberg, it's not forced by a bigger player downstream, it is forced by you reacting. Is that idea of defection, that, hey, if this guy is going to tell on me, he's going to go free, so I'm going to do the same thing. So that idea creates actually the worst outcome, because both of you dilute the market. That's the time that we need to find something else. And in order for you to do that, you need resources. And that's when a company like GigaCloud comes into place, because, like, it's an ecosystem that we've created that is very agnostic. It's actually how you use it for your own advantage. I think in the early days when we talked to the mattress folks, we're like, hey, you have the customer in the store, you should sell them a bed. Because that customer leaves the store. If you don't sell them a bed, they're going to go to a furniture store to buy a bed. If not, they're going to go online to buy a bed. But it's the perfect marriage of doing the two things together, and having that idea of hey, I'm going to have the capability to offer my customer something my competitor doesn't. That's going to make all the difference. And I think we're seeing less of that because we're in a copycat industry, like where the product itself is being copied in 100, different shapes and forms. Price points are being duplicated. And in the store, even ads and, approaches are being duplicated. Like there are price points that are molded in people's head. Oh, $4.99, like, mattress and a frame. Well, everybody carries that. How is it that you can have an advantage, and how do you bring in the new customer and sell him that idea when everybody else does so? It requires capital. You have to spend ad dollars that eats into your margin. So how do you create that differentiation is always like, one of those things that could set you apart.
So let me break it down for people. So let's dig into like some nuts and bolts here. Mm-hmm. So we're talking with Iman Schrock, Giga Cloud Technology. He's the president of the company. We're talking about supplier-fulfilled retail is what this comes down to. And that's where a supplier holds the cost of that inventory. You're able to access it, put it in your store, put it on your website, sell it. And when it sells, that's when you pay the supplier, supplier-fulfilled retail. So from a brick and mortar standpoint, do you have any stores out there right now that are completely powered by Giga Cloud? Meaning everything that's in their store is part of the Giga Cloud technology platform, and it's like a floor sample, and then it's just shipped to somebody's house. They're not holding they don't have warehouses at all. Is that something that's happening yet?
Not yet, but we've made a lot of headways in that sense. Like one of the things that John Anderson, he runs sales for us, fantastic guy, him well. His only problem is he's like 7 feet tall. But outside of that,
anybody at Sleep Summit saw him. He was up on stage and he was like basically touching the rafters.
Yeah,
John did amazing, by the way.
I don't want to take a picture. But basically, what he's doing is actually quite interesting. So he's bringing all of the mattress brands that he can get his hands on onto our platform. So for the first time, we can offer this mattress super line to the stores. So even though the store could be merchandised a certain way, the store also has access to all the other mattress brands out there. So just in case the customer comes in and they're looking for a mattress that is non-existent in the lineup, and that becomes a thing because even if you have 1 million square feet, you're going to run out of space before you display everything. So having access to that component, which is that endless aisle solution that has this, the supply chain figured out, is very, very empowering. But we can also expand that into other categories of home, whether it's upholstered beds or the beds itself or the nightstands or the recliners and on and on and on. And we do have a lot of stores that are adopting this model. Like I think, like I don't know if it's official or not, but you guys will see Purple on the platform. And there's a lot of stores that have, opened their doors to Purple. And the idea was to do one pay sourcing kind of a thing, but offer all these various brands. You don't have to open an account. Everything is like wholesale pricing with the shipping enabled. And through that, like you kind of do the supplier fulfilled retailing the way it makes sense for your store. And the opportunity that affords you, Mark, is you can really tinker with things without really committing to inventory. And you only commit when you're 100% sure, okay, in my pocket, people are responding to this particular product, whatever it may be. And you can even do more of it and see when that saturation occurs. And then that's when you diversify. So it really gives you that opportunity to look at business from a different lens. And yeah, using technology for that purpose to do market sampling quicker, because it's a game of data. And I think one of the coolest things you'll see that internet has done, it has given a telescope to folks. Larry, our CEO, talks about this, that all of the manufacturers across the world have this telescope into the market, that they run a $6.99, mattress with like gel memory foam on top and springs and whatnot online, and they see how people respond to it in a matter of days, and then they can flood the market with products. The brick and mortars are always late to this game because they can't sample as fast because they're stuck with inventory. And that is one change that is taking market share away from the stores and giving it to the online retailers. And it can also become a huge advantage if the retailers create kind of a dual strategy where they have their 80-20 and 20% of the merchandise that does 80% of the volume, have inventory of that ready to go. But then the other 80%, you don't need to control as closely, because the idea with that 80% is to bring you new customers, you know, and that you can get only if you adopt this model. And for us, we're 100% agnostic. It's your choice with the vendors, with the product types, and you guys will work with each other. And as you know, like the retail stores and the retailer in general, they transact for free on the marketplace. We only charge the sellers a transaction fee only when the product sells. And that is very transparent. And the higher the volume, the lower that rate. And I think if it's like over 40K or something like that, it becomes 1%. So it's insignificant. So actually for volume, we don't charge anything for performing the service. You know, we're after scale, and we want to be, you know, the infrastructure of the industry.
And so people understand what that infrastructure is. Let's talk about that for a minute, because right now, I want to be clear on the retail side of things. Mm-hmm. You're saying that anybody on the retail side that's using the Giga Cloud technology right now is using it as powering their website. So they're putting up these products online, or they have a Wonder Sign in their store, and Wonder Sign has that catalog, that endless aisle. So if you're a mattress store, you can sell furniture and bedroom sets and whatever else right there from your store, from this big interactive display, and then it ships straight to their house. Or you can also, as a retailer, have those products shipped to your store or warehouse for staging and final delivery. Right. So you have some flexibility there. Because I know some people are like really sensitive about that delivery component, because they're like, well, this is the final touch point. We want to make sure that we leave them with a smile, ask for a review, make sure it's set up and taken care of. So you have that flexibility as well.
100%. Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up. It's that the platform itself has no solidified boundaries as far as you need to use this a certain way. We're kind of like Chipotle. You kind of bring your bowl and you make a salad out of it. You know, there are folks that are only using us for supply chain. They're using the marketplace. They're getting orders to the store. They're getting orders delivered to the end consumer through the Wonder Sign, through their website, or through the web. The idea is understanding the business model and all the capabilities enables a lot of folks out there to get creative with their business and create that blue ocean strategy. Because again, I think it's the tools that we're offering people, not the solution itself, how to use it to craft their own solution. And absolutely, I'm a big proponent of controlling that experience as well. And there are a lot of stores that are doing it, and they're doing it with pride. And if that's the case, then that is the business model itself. Then it becomes a, you know, like you mentioned, you know, a matter of offering diversity and choices to their customer base.
So Amon, what would prevent somebody, or why would they not? Give me some why nots or why they shoulds about, all right, I can find a high traffic retail space. Maybe there's some other furniture stores around. Maybe I'm in San Diego and there are people just walking up and down the street, just trying to find a place to burn money. I'm going to set up a store. You know, these locations, you set up a store and it's all Giga Cloud product, let's call it. And so you put the product in the store, you don't have a warehouse, and it's pretty much just a showroom, and people can buy, and maybe you have a sales associate there. So you're not only inventory light, you're inventory non-existent. What are the hurdles there? Like, where are the landmines in that model?
I think, you know, at some point you need to convert a portion of the floor, because there are times that buying in volume has benefits. Economy of scale is a real thing. And this model is not an absolute. I think, you know, the 80-20 rule is the perfect opportunity for you to identify the best sellers, what really works for your store through this model, have ample opportunity to get those delivered very quickly, because that's the thing, you know, sometimes in furniture, we want to quickly deliver so the sale is closed. But then outside of that, you know, being, you know, flexible really helps. And you always, like, your best seller today doesn't remain your best sellers forever. You always have the opportunity to demote and promote products as you see fit, because as you know, like even Restoration Hardware, who's on the leading edge, you know, on the furniture side design, you know, every 6 months they refresh almost everything, because like they know the world copies them. You know, like you look at it, the fabrics, the styles, and everything gets copied, and then, you know, they set the tone and then people catch up. So they try to milk those 6 months by being, you know, a leader a unique design, and then they depart and they move on. But as far as your point into having a store that is fully e-commerce like, inventory non-existent, that is already being done. It's already happened. Wayfair launched their first retail locations in Chicago. I don't think they publicly have made any information about the stores, but the folks that have visited, they're saying the store is super busy. There's a lot of orders being delivered, so they're happy. It looks like the team is happy with it. They're talking about expansion, and yeah, it's already being done. I think they were visionary enough to kind of see that the same supply chain can also service a brick and mortar store.
It sounds like something that, I mean, from a outside looking in, just observation, it sounds like the GigaCloud platform is a great way to sort of almost act like a drop shipper in a sense. Like, I'm going to experiment with some different products here that I don't have to hold, and then I can see what's going to work, and then boom, I can place my bets on the table with some deeper inventory that I'm going to get at a much lower cost. But it allows you to have that flexibility of experimentation, probably a much bigger product catalog than the average buyer or merchandiser would have access to. So there's some ways to like pull these levers at different times to get different advantages out of it. And then of course, like we talked about, creating a massive endless aisle on a website. Now, I think the challenge there is like, you still need to curate, you still need to be a merchandiser. You can't just be like, all right, I'm turning on everything that Amon gave me, every product everywhere all at once. I think you're gonna be in some red ocean there and not be competitive.
100%. And the truth is, our platform has a lot of features that are kind of revolutionary in a sense that, like B2B sourcing, like you mentioned, even when it comes to drop shipping, the easiest component of it, it's a no-brainer. Not only the supply chain is solved, but also every supplier and every buyer, they have a index, what we call a Giga index, that is tracked by AI. So the transaction reputation. So before going into business and transacting with somebody, you can kind of see their score, how they're scoring as far as their reputation and reliability, a number of issues. Even every product has a return metrics. So you can see returns moderate, returns low. When you talk about volume, the transaction, the marketplace even allows you to buy containers through the platform, do bulk buys, what we call future buys. And you can kind of do it the same way. The idea is, when you have it in that cloud setting, the supplier gets to sell it to multiple people or exclusively to you. But the moment you're no longer in the business, then the supplier can resell it to other folks. Hence, the risk on the entire ecosystem is reduced. Obviously, if you don't have inventory, if you're a retail store, Mark, your risk is tremendously reduced because you sell the full model, you're clear. The risk doesn't necessarily shift to the other side because it's a concept we call pooling effective risk, is what the insurance companies do. To me, on an individual level, when I get a new vehicle, I can't really calculate in my head what are my chances of getting into a car accident. So I opt to solve that problem by paying a premium to an insurance company. And that's on an individual level. But for Geico, my insurance provider, for them, it's quite easy because actually for the past 50, 60 years, the number of accidents in America is within like tenths of percent, goes up and down, up and down. So let's say like 0.8% of drivers get into accidents. So you figure out the math and you charge people based on 1.2%. You basically print money because it is so stable. And that's why we see all these buildings in the major cities are owned by insurance companies, is because they solve that problem. And the same thing happens, the pulling effect of risk is the risk doesn't shift to the supplier side. The supplier having inventory in an agnostic, non-committal position allows them to service multiple channels. So hence the risk is reduced and they get to have better visibility over market performance and demand plan where, in a store, sometimes an issue is like you sell through a container for whatever reason now, and then you order 2 more containers and then boom, the sales stop. What happens then? The product was selling really hot. Now it doesn't sell. So what do you do then? In that case, the supplier gets to sell it to you, to me, to 5 other people, and that risk is mitigated. And that's the whole idea, is that supplier fulfilled retailing allows the industry to operate more efficiently. And speaking
That's
of
an
that,
interesting comparison between insurance and, whenever I found out about the GigaCloud model, I likened it to I've got my lake and I can say how many straws get put in it.
yep,
And whenever, some of the straws are gone, I can be like, wait, there are more people that have straws that want to drink out of this lake of product. So I can say, hey, come over here, put a straw in it. And so now you're constantly, filling up your pipeline. And like you said, I think that was one of the challenges, I think, early on when I was talking to suppliers, like, well, if I commit all this inventory to GigaCloud, then, what happens? I'm just sitting on this inventory. My whole business model is going to be screwed up at that point because it's reliant on me making these goods and getting them out the door, not just keeping them. And so part of the solve there is that GigaCloud does have, what do you have, like 5 distribution center warehouses that are packed to the teeth with technology?
so 5 plus 24 in the US, 10 million square feet, so 29 of them. And
That's what I meant, 29.
29, yeah. It, actually, when I joined the company, it used to be, I think, 11, believe it or not. It's crazy because that was like right before the company went IPO. But yeah, 29. Like our utilization rate, we had in the press release we talked about 90% utilization rate. So they're pretty full. A lot of them are brand new, being racked, and 100%. Like that. The idea is to optimize the supply chain. It's what we call end-to-end delivery, because that journey, Mark, this is actually very interesting. The reason why GigaCloud is growing is our business model actually attacks a very unique subsector. Because if you think about it, the journey that the package takes when it's produced all the way to the end consumer, whether that's in America from North Carolina to Los Angeles, if the mattress is produced, or an upholstered bed from Vietnam to the end consumer, that entire journey has so many moving pieces with different games, like the ocean shipping component, the storage, the drayage, the last mile delivery. And all of that can be solved for the supplier. So when the supplier, let's say, like you create like a new mattress, you come up with a new technology, you come to the platform as a supplier, you put it onto the platform will give you a nationwide flat rate. You don't even know where your product is, Mark. The product is going to go to cloud warehousing because we're going to enable that mattress to go to every zip code for like $150. And boom. Now, all of a sudden, your inventory that is all over the place can be accessed by everybody, and they get to pull from it, and they get to download the product to their end consumer's doorstep. And you're like, okay, wait a second, I sold half a container in a month. So that's kind of giving me a sell-through rate of 1 container. I want to bring in a little bit more. So here's 2 containers in. And you operate your business that way as well.
That is fascinating. What's
Yeah.
next for Gig? Well, hold on first before I say what's next for GigaCloud, what really in your mind has led to such significant growth in a 2.5-year period?
For us, we're obviously, like we're very, very, oh, actually, one interesting fact. Forbes just came out with their list of the most successful small caps companies. Small caps is define any company with less than $2 billion in market cap. Where do you think GigaCloud ranked in that list?
Top 5?
Yep, number 1. I'll send you the link. Actually,
Congratulations.
we're like, it's actually quite an honor, like to work for this organization. But what's ahead for us is obviously like, we're improving the Wonder Sign. Wonder Sign is going to be a fantastic tool. We're going to get it to a point where it becomes a very, very strong asset to the to the stores. And obviously it's a pipeline. So as the store is more successful, the suppliers attached to the stores will become more successful. But we're going to get the products on the kiosk to transact. We're going to come up with a program that it's similar to the SPIF program, but the idea, we'll call it the supplier direct incentive. But the idea would be that if you launch a new mattress, you get to reward the salesperson that actually makes the sale on the floor by creating some kind of a SPIF that can be tracked. And also we're pairing that with training, so there's a training module we're introducing that allows people to kind of track who's watched the training so the managers can follow up to say, hey, why this video hasn't been watched ever? And maybe you should watch the video again. And why haven't you sold this mattress? So we're trying to create a lot of visibility across that sales pipeline for the betterment of the store. And the Wonder Sign is going to be very, very, exciting for us going forward. I think Casper will talk a little bit more about some of this exciting stuff that he's doing at the leadership conference in Naples. He's going to do an interview with me. And then on the marketplace side, we're going to continue to push. Obviously, our goal is to become a solution for all the stores out there. We'd love to talk to you. We want to help you. Obviously, GigaCloud itself is not a product brand. We have no preference if you buy from brand A, brand B, or brand C. All we want to do is we want to empower brand A and B and C so they can service you better, so you can service your customer better, however that is, however that makes sense to you, whether it's directly to the end consumer on the web, whether it's in the store, delivered to your store, whether it's on the kiosk, whether it's the mattresses or the, like additional categories, whatever that may be, that decision is upon you. But we would love to be able to help and empower you so that you can do business in a better way. Obviously, like companies very profitable. I think, there's some, cash that we have. So we're looking for ways to see how we can improve the ecosystem for all participants involved. So, last year we acquired 2 companies, Noble House and Wonder Sign. So hopefully, we can find another company that can contribute to us and our ecosystem for the betterment of everybody as well.
One of the points of clarification, congratulations on those acquisitions, by the way, and we'll be looking at all the news that comes out of the company for that next acquisition, whatever it might be. But one of the things I want to point out, I think is kind of interesting too, is from a supplier side, you don't have to put all your products into the Giga Cloud facilities. You have a lot of flexibility there. So you can still list your products on the platform, keep them in your own warehouse, fulfill them from your own warehouse. So every time something moves, there's a potential for that thing to break or get busted. So you can tap into this ecosystem with bringing your products there, put them in one of your facilities, being like, okay, we're done with it for now as it sells, as we put those straws in that lake, or people can keep them in their own existing facilities.
100%. I mean, the idea is if you have your product properly load balanced from the source, and we do that with AI and algorithms, so that we can place it closer to the end consumer. So it's a bet. So like if you produce a bed and our AI decides that, hey, this could it's more likely to sell in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and New York than it is in California, and we send your product to New Jersey, even though we pay higher costs to take this to New Jersey, we shouldn't. We should enter through the cheapest, but we don't. We're going to get rewarded on the last mile journey because the product gets there with less touch points, less likely to get damaged, as you mentioned, and also obviously cheaper. So we're taking this bet. As you can see, we're winning this bet more often than not. So that's the only thing, the only difference. What we call Giga On-Site is you use your warehouses to fulfill. But at any point, I encourage folks to also visit to see if there are additional savings on that last mile piece. Because if your mattress is being delivered out of your single warehouse for like $150, and if you import it into our ecosystem and that price drops to $85, those are dollars in your pocket or in your business partner's pocket or your end consumer's pocket. And those dollars are hard to find because they're lost. And we would love to help you in that process. Obviously, we make money in doing so. We figure it out, the algorithms and the, all the AI that we incorporate. But we would love to be your partner in that sense. But it's not, something that is required.
What led to all this? I mean, tell us about Larry. Larry's the CEO. Did he just come up with this idea one day and decide to start like buying up warehouses and putting this project together? Where did this all come from?
Larry is actually very, very interesting, man. He's probably not the Dos Equis, guy, but he's like up there. He's like one of the most interesting folks out there. So he graduated from Yale School of Business. Very, very intelligent, very articulate. Doesn't know furniture, doesn't know mattresses. He knows supply chain. He knows organizations. He actually was the CEO of an online education company in early 2000s, something similar to our Pimsleur or Rosetta Stone, but online. That was teaching folks various languages and skills online. In early 2000s, I tell you. That company called New Oriental Training, it's still traded publicly. The ticker is EDU. So I think, he had a lot of success, whether financially or, vocationally, when he kind of sold his shares and moved on and went to Yale School of Business. He didn't need to work probably at that point. But when he came back, he he's like, hey, maybe I can kind of do the same thing. This is like the 2006, 2007s. Around the same time I joined the furniture industry, he came up with a system to Japan was growing really fast to bring engineers, to the Japanese market to teach them Japanese like that enough so that they can work in that market. But obviously the cost will be a lot lower, kind of outsourcing engineers. Very interesting. And like hitting financial crisis at the time, he realized that, the first thing people usually cut is the IT infrastructure. So he pivoted the business model at that time. He realized that, e-commerce is taking off. So he's like, hey, why can't I use the same engineers in the network that I have to teach people how to do e-commerce better? And in doing so, they were trying things so that they can learn and become better themselves so they can teach other people e-commerce. They became the biggest seller of suitcases in Japan. Crazy. So Larry stops works at the time. I think like 30, 40 people are in the company. He stops everybody from working. He's like, everybody stop. For 2, 3 days, we're going to write down our thoughts of why this happened. Why are we the biggest seller of suitcases? Because they sold everything. They sold umbrellas, shirts, for whatever. They were trying to become an e-commerce, company. And why is it that suitcases worked out? So after 2 days, they came up with 2 keywords: non-standard and big and bulky. So these are the products that are not, cash and carry. You always require an infrastructure and optimization to run these. So actually Giga started in Japan. We ran our business in Japan, and then, the European Union, the UK, I think, as a distributor, we entered the United States in like 2013 or so, something like that. And Larry was working on this idea of a marketplace. He loves capitalism. I think it's very rewarding to folks that participate in it. And we launched this marketplace in 2019. This idea that it's the craziest thing, Mark, because Larry basically told all his suppliers to come compete with him on this platform and sell to his customers. That's our 1P business. Think about that. So Larry was talking about this very interesting idea that, hey, he built up this reserve bank of trust with folks, and he used every penny in that bank to persuade the entire organization to basically do this model of a marketplace. Because the marketplace is a chicken and egg, right? We recruit sellers, and the sellers offer choices and variety. We recruit buyers to say, hey, all these products are available. And then the buyers we use to recruit sellers. So it's a back and forth. So initially we're 100% 1P. We put our entire 1P on the platform. We invited our factories that we were buying from to come compete with us and sell to our customers. So that's how the marketplace started, and that's how bold he is. And you fast forward to today, like I said, 1,051 3P sellers and 8,581 resellers are on the platform transacting with each other. And about 52% of the business is done completely without any involvement from us by third parties. These are folks that are transacting with each other, and they simply use all the tools that I mentioned, those, algorithms and AIs that improve your supply chain to do business with each other. The suppliers are quickly realizing that, hey, it's a game of scale, and having an efficient, we're very, very efficient, running 30 warehouses should tell you how efficient we are. But running those many warehouses allows them to use our scale to get to the consumer, to get to the consumer through the reseller faster and better. And the retailers, as they adopt this model, they kind of ride the same infrastructure, because it's like at the end of the day, it's like 50, 60,000 SKUs. And the best thing about the marketplace, Mark, is that each supplier gets to set different pricing for different people. So as you build up your relationship with them, we allow the two parties to communicate. So the marketplace on a B2B front, the matching, when you and I know each other, the value goes out the door. So we have to offer a lot more to keep the participants engaged, because if I know you, I can text you on the side. I don't need to pay GigaCloud 1% to do business. The reason I do is because we solve big problems on both ends, and we're adding value to the businesses, giving them the opportunity to be more competitive. But again, I think the biggest challenge is it's complicated. It's it's departing from the existing way of doing business. You know, people love to continue to do business the way they do. They resist change, and I think we bring to market that change. And sometimes people are like, "Wait a second, I don't think I'm ready to do that." So, talking
Well, if
about
there's
that.
any industry that tends to be resistant to change, you picked the right one. Because sometimes I'm always worrying people. I'm like, hey, don't be so far out in front of your platoon you get shot in the back here, because being too advanced is too advanced. That's a great story, by the way, about Larry and the big and bulky and the suitcases. I'm curious, just out of over 1,000 products or 1,000 product companies and 60,000 roughly SKUs, have you had any of those moments on the Cloud platform, like a suitcase moment? Are there products out there you're like, oh my gosh, this is doing really, really well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, every day, every day. I mean, I would love, next time you're in California, we're in El Monte, our headquarters. I would love to walk with you through the warehouse. Like seeing like some of these products is like sometimes crazy. Like we have full blown saunas. I want one so bad for my backyard, but full blown saunas or commercial fridges. But something that's selling like crazy is chicken coops. Like I guess people are liking the idea of having chickens, organic eggs or whatever. So we're selling chicken coops like crazy. And the moment they told me that, I was like, holy moly, that is pretty interesting. But again, our algorithms are kind of agnostic to the type of product. Anything big and bulky, anything that is not standard and fragmented, we specialize in. But yeah, there's a lot of moments. But the key, Mark, is that it changes. Like there are trends. People like go on TikTok and then like kids are like doing their own chickens, and like it becomes a thing. So all of a sudden, everybody's buying chicken coops. So I don't know when that trend stops, but it's happening.
Chicken coops. I wouldn't have thought that myself. All right,
Yeah.
chicken coops and saunas. Well, we'll have to have you back at some point to talk about some of those trends and what Giga is going to be up to next. And like you said, the evolution of Wondersign that has a huge impact, within the mattress industry. We've talked about it on the show before, but just this idea that you have so much found money walking through your store and leaving your store and going to somebody else's door. You've got the mattress, maybe you've got the bases, maybe you have frames and pillows and sheets. But my gosh, like if somebody, is going through that transition of moving or getting into a new home or whatever that transition is, which is very typical of a furniture and mattress buyer, they need a lot more than typically what you have, and to be able to walk them through an incredible catalog of products and not send it over to your competition. I remember talking to John Anderson and hearing that there are many people doing $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month in incremental sales just from the Wonder Signs. Those are significant numbers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like the idea is, how do we create money outside of our existing ecosystem? And a lot of the times the existing way of business becomes a prison. Like everybody's trying to push sales and they want to stick to what they're doing best. And sometimes like the easiest way to do things is like you find the right partner. And we're hoping to be that partner, Mark. Like whatever that may be. I will always like talk to the team to encourage them to really get to know the customer and inform the customer of everything that we do and allow them to make the right decision for their business, because nobody knows their business better than the people that are in the driver's seat. All we need to do is to educate them of our capabilities, and boom. If they realize that, hey, I can be empowered to do things that I can't do today, and this is what makes sense for my business, and I'm going to do it. This is the time to do it, is right now, because we're seeing a lot of turbulence, to say the least, in this space. So,
Well put indeed. Well, Amon, I know you're on LinkedIn. People can get connected to you there. Obviously, you can Google Giga Cloud Technology and find the company. Thank you so much for sharing the story, the story that's continuing to be written. Congratulations on your daughter and the growth of the company and all the success you had along the way. We look forward to keeping in touch, and we've had a great time here at the FAM getting to know John Anderson and Casper Fopp and the entire team. Great people, wonderful human beings that work for your group, and we know you're in it for the long haul to help people. We can feel that.
Absolutely. I appreciate you and thank you for this opportunity. And yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I'm gonna make sure that I don't miss a podcast going forward.
You've only got about 600 to catch up on if you're just getting started, but we believe in you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm number 601.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay.
Depending on when Adrian publishes this, but yeah, we'll call it 601. I love it. Well, hey,
That,
if you think that you have a friend out there that would benefit from hearing this, your colleagues, if you want to be at the bleeding edge of what's happening in supplier fulfilled retail and the evolution of winning on logistics, this is one for people to tune into. Amon, thank you again. Give us a like, subscribe, and we'll catch you back here every Monday on the FAM podcast.
thank you. Thank you.